Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. This is the first video in the series that I'm calling the Beginner Bible, and what it is going to be is it's going to be really in-depth kind of tutorials and explanations of how to do things to your face, how to do your makeup. So starting with like complexion all the way to smoky eye, we're going to do natural eyes, we're going to do a lot of things. We're going to try and cover all the bases, talk about product, talk about brushes, really in-depth kind of tutorials for beginners, people who are just starting out in makeup, or maybe people who have done makeup for a long time but want to learn something new. Hopefully I can give you some tips and tricks. So that's why I'm here today, to help you with that. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy this series. I think it's going to be really fun. Let's just get right on into it. So today is going to be the first video, and it is going to be all about complexion. So we're talking about primers, I'm going to be talking about color correcting, I'm going to be talking about foundation, brushes, application, longevity. I'm going to be covering all the bases, everything you need to know. Complexion 101, this is where you want to be. So let's get started. So today I'm going to be using my own complexion, and with that being said, make sure that you tailor this routine to your own complexion. I'm going to kind of touch base on different things you can look for in your skin so that you can have an idea of how you can tailor your routine. But basically all the steps are going to be the same. So first thing you want to do is moisturize your skin. After you've cleansed your skin, make sure your skin is moisturized. Let your moisturizer sit in your skin for probably about 5 to 10 minutes, just so that you don't still feel that like really stickiness, but your skin feels nice and supple. If anybody asks you what's your skin type, you're going to say one of the following. You're going to say it's either normal, so you don't have any really major issues with your skin. It doesn't get particularly shiny throughout the day. It's just kind of normal, run-of-the-mill. Then you have the dry skin type, combination skin type, and oily skin type. Sensitive is not a skin type. It just means that you're sensitive to something that you're using, or your skin is just a little more delicate. Sensitivity is a whole other thing that I could talk about. Some people think they're sensitive, but really it's just a certain ingredient that they're actually allergic to. But there are different degrees of that anyway that I could go on for forever. But basically those are the 4 types of skin types: normal, dry, combination, oily. That's what you need to know, and that's really important because that'll tell you how you need to tailor your skincare routine, your foundation, your complexion routine. That is kind of where you need to go off. So I'm going to be doing a complexion routine for a combination skin type. So firstly, what I did, again, moisturize. So the second step of your complexion routine is going to be to use a primer to prime your beautiful canvas to make sure that your foundation lasts all day and looks amazing all day as well. Now there's a million different things you can do for primers. There's actually a lot of brands that break it down really easy for you. Like Makeup Forever has the step 1 correctors and primers, and then there's everything you need to know. It's very simplified. Another good thing to do if you're not sure is to maybe go to your local Sephora. They can help you find out what your skin type is and let you know some primers that will work best for your skin. Now for me, because I am combination, I like to use 2 different primers. This can be seen as excessive, however, this is what works for me, and you don't necessarily need 2 different primers, but because I have combination skin type, my skin is completely different in 2 areas of my face. So for that I do need 2 different primers. If you're just normal, then you probably just need 1. If you're dry, you just need 1. If you're oily, you just need 1. And based on that, like oily, typically you want to use a mattifying primer, unless your skin is really dehydrated, and that's why it's making all the excess oil. Like if you never moisturize your skin, it could be because your skin is just really dry, so therefore you need to moisturize. It's kind of complicated. The best thing to do is to look into some skincare, and then you can actually combat your skincare issues so that your foundation lasts better throughout the day. But that's a whole other thing that I could talk about. But for today, let's just keep it as simple as possible. Primers. So the first primer I'm going to be using is the Makeup Forever Hydrating Primer. Because I'm combination skin, I'm really dry kind of on my cheek area. So I want to make sure that that's really hydrated so that the foundation will smooth on like butter. And the second primer I'm going to use is the all-in-one 5-action perfecting Instablur from the Body Shop. This one has kind of like a silicone feel to it. It's going to fill in any of my pores and fine lines, anything like that, to make sure that my skin looks really smooth. And then this one also helps to mattify your skin throughout the day as well. So where I get really oily, this will keep me matte. So what I'm going to do is take the hydrating primer, and you just need a very small amount of this, like this much, like a little dollop, just like that, because I'm only putting it where I need it, which is just on my cheeks. Sometimes if you put too much primer, it actually defeats the purpose of the primer and just makes your foundation slip everywhere. And then for the Insta Blur, I'm going to take a little bit more because we have a larger area to fill. But I don't want to take too much because I can always grab more product. So start small and work your way up. And then I like to warm it up in between my fingers and just kind of press it onto my skin. So definitely on the forehead, definitely on the nose, and the chin. And sometimes I like to bring it out just to my cheeks a little bit because my pores are most visible on my cheeks. Okay, perfect. My face is all primed and ready to go. So the third step that you could fit into your foundation or complexion routine is color correcting. Now, this has been around for a long time, but right now it's trending at Sephora, it's trending all over social media. Color correcting has become really mainstream, so I thought I would touch base on it just in case you're confused or you don't really know what it is. So basically, color correcting is thinking of the color wheel and looking at your complexion and seeing what kind of pigment shouldn't be there. So for my skin tone, I'm very fair, but if you look at my skin, I have redness that shouldn't be there, right? Because it doesn't fit with the rest of my skin. So with the redness, I would use a green corrector because red neutralizes green. If you aren't familiar with the color wheel, I highly suggest you pull it up on Google because that's going to be the easiest thing and the easiest way to understand color correcting. There are 1,000,001 products out there right now because this is trending. So to narrow it down would be based again on your skin type. If you're really dry skin, maybe use something a little creamier. If you're really oily skin, maybe use something a little bit lighter. And you want to be sure not to layer too many products on your skin either. It's a very delicate balance, but once you figure out your skin tone, your skin type, all of that good stuff, what you need to correct, it's a lot easier and a lot simpler. But the biggest thing to do is look at your skin, see what kind of tones or shades aren't necessarily natural and shouldn't be there, or that you want to change, and neutralize it with a corresponding color. So based on that, because I have redness, I'm going to be using the Marc Jacobs corrector, and this is called the Covert Affairs Cover Stick. And this is a green and yellow marbling. You can see that there. So it has both. Yellow can also correct redness, just in a more natural way. It's not as intense as a straight up green corrector. You can use something like this that has a little bit of both, or you can use just straight yellow. Totally depends on your skin tone and all that stuff and what kind of coverage you're going to use at the end, because with a corrector you do need to put foundation or concealer on top. So let's go in with the corrector. I'm only going to put it where I need it. So I just need a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit on my forehead, and then I take a little bit on my finger and I put that around my nose. That's it. I don't really have a lot of redness anywhere else, and I do have a little bit of redness, but it's not enough to need to color correct. That's another thing. If you don't have pigment in your skin, like the redness or let's say acne scarring or things like that that you want to brighten, if it's not that intense, you might not need a color corrector. Not everyone needs to color correct. It's just if you need an extra boost. Okay, so with this particular color corrector, I like to use my fingers just because it is kind of a creamy stick. I like to really warm it up into my skin and let it melt into my skin. However, you can use a beauty blender, a brush, whatever you want, but I like to use my fingers, so I'm just gonna rub it into my skin. And a little bit goes a long way with this one. You don't need much at all. In fact, if you use too much, it kind of does that weird breaking up of the skin thing with the foundation, which I absolutely despise. So, just putting this where I need it. Okay, and that is the corrector all blended out. Depending on the color corrector that you're using, you might notice that it's still sitting on your skin and you can see the color. That's fine. It's just neutralizing it. So once you put your foundation on top, you're not going to see that color. And if you do, you could have used too much or it's not right for your skin tone. Okay, so now that we have primed the skin, we have corrected the skin, it is time to move on to foundation. Now, there again, based on your skin type and your skin tone and all of that, there are 1,000,001 foundations out there for you. Biggest thing to consider is coverage. What kind of coverage you're looking for. Do you want it to be sheer? Do you want it to be medium? Do you want it to be full? Basically, the best way to think about this is if you had a pair of tights, one being the sheerest tight, one being kind of like in between and then one being completely opaque. So think of it as the sheerest tight, you can see your skin through it. The medium type, you can see a little bit of your skin color, and then the full opaque tight, you see nothing. Think of that in terms of foundation. Sheer coverage meaning it's going to give an overall balance to the skin. It's going to neutralize all of the skin tones, but if you have any acne or any other pigmentation, any redness, it's not going to fully cover that. The medium, it's going to be a slightly more coverage, but you're still going to see freckles, things like that. Full coverage, you're not going to see anything. If you want your skin to look natural, go with a sheer to medium coverage. And if you want your skin to look flawless, go with a full coverage. It depends for everybody. Some people who have beautiful skin still like to wear full coverage. So it's completely up to you. And you shouldn't feel like just because you have dark spots, acne, redness, that you have to wear full coverage either. It's completely personal preference. Upon that, there's also finishes. So there's natural finish, there's a radiant finish, there's a matte finish, just to name a few. So based again, it all comes back to your skin type and what kind of look you're going for. Think about that, pick your range of where you want to be, and that's where you know the kind of finish and coverage that you want out of a foundation. And then for shade, it's important to be able to swatch things. So it's important to be able to try the foundation on your kind of jawline here, because then you can see the comparison of your neck and your actual skin, like your, what am I saying? Between your neck and your face. Now if you look at me, I'm a lot more yellow in my neck, so I typically like to match my neck to my face. It's always better to go with your body because that's going to look the most natural. So I'm a little bit darker on my chest and neck than I am on my face. So the best way to do it is kind of put it on your jaw. I typically like to do 3 different foundation shades. See which one looks the best with my neck color, and then also blending off the edge a little bit. Whatever one disappears into your skin, that's how you know that's matched. And so for today, I chose to use the CoverGirl Ready Set Gorgeous. This is in the shade 105. This is a medium to full coverage foundation, and it's kind of like a satin finish. And I'm just going to show you by putting the line here. So if you can see that, it matches my neck. And then sometimes what I like to do is just blend that out a little bit. And if it disappears, you know it matches. But then if you look at it on my hand, it looks like it doesn't match me at all. So you have to think about that. When you go in store, I know it's easier to just put it on your hand, but it's not the most effective way to do it. So if you want to get the perfect match, you kind of have to test it on your jaw. And then what I like to do is this here. I like to put it all over my face in little dots, and then I blend it in. Now there are a few brushes that you can use for this. Well, I mean, you could really use any kind of brush you want. But the 2 brushes that are probably the most common are the flat foundation brush, which looks like this. This is probably going to give you the most amount of coverage, and it's not going to let it kind of buff into your skin. It kind of sits on top of the skin a little bit more because it's almost like a paintbrush or painting it on. So think of this as like the fullest coverage. And this one is a flat buffer brush. This one will give you good coverage as well. However, it's going to look a little more natural because you're really working it into your skin. So it becomes one with your skin. So this is really good for that. And then there's also sponges like the beauty sponges and beauty blender and all that kind of stuff, which are really great as well. But it's personal preference. I prefer using a buffing brush like this, so I'll just show you how I do it. I just blend it downwards. It might look like I'm going like this, but I'm not touching my skin when I'm dragging upward. There's a reason I do that, and it's because I don't want to bring, like I have little peach fuzz on my hair, I don't want to get those kind of all over the place. So if I get them all over the place, then they stick up and you can see them in the sunlight and it's a disaster. So I like to kind of paint them downwards just so that they don't become annoying. On my chin, I don't have them as much, so around my mouth I kind of like to go in circular motions because it's kind of hard to get into like the nook and crannies and the contours of your lips. So I buff in a circle. And always be sure to bring it down your neck a little bit, just so you don't have that really harsh foundation line right here. And I like to avoid my under eye area because I'm going to be putting concealer under there anyway. And you can never buff too much, so I always feel like you can never blend enough, so I'm always blending. And always start small and then add more product if you need it. I feel like this is pretty good coverage. I don't feel like I want to add any more. You can if you want to. If you want a little more full coverage, a lot of foundations are buildable so that you can add more to get more coverage. But I'm happy with how this looks, so I'm going to leave it there. Now moving on to concealer. Now I'm going to be using the MAC Pro Longwear Concealer for under my eyes. I like this one because it's very full coverage. It's a good shade. They have a very good shade range for these. I've used this for a very long time. It's one of my ride or dies. I just really like this concealer, but find the concealer that works best for you. If you don't have particularly dark under eyes, you might want something that's a little more medium to sheer coverage. Maybe you just want something to brighten, like the Touche Éclat from YSL, or maybe you want something that's full coverage to cover the under eyes. I definitely like to cover these under eyes. They're almost like a brownie kind of like, I don't know, dark circles. So let's cover those up. I just take a pump, and same thing with under eyes. Less is more, so I like to just dip my finger in there a little bit just so that there's not too much concealer, but just enough. This video is going to be real long to edit because I will not stop talking. And then I like to just kind of dot it like this, to do it like this in kind of a triangle shape. Because if you do it just underneath your eye, think about it this way: light pulls the face outwards, whereas darkness pulls the face back. So if you're using a dark shadow here, it's contouring out and sculpting a cheekbone. If you're using highlight here, it's bringing a cheekbone out. So if you're only using concealer on this little area where you naturally have a contour for your eye, because your eye is round, you're going to accentuate your eye bag because that's the way your eye is shaped. For me anyway, I have this roundness right here because I have more rounded eyes. If you can see what I'm saying, there's like a puffiness here. It's not necessarily a bag or puffiness, it's just the way my eye is shaped. But if you only put the white there, or Jesus, if you only put the concealer there, you're just going to draw more attention to it. So that's why dragging the concealer down slightly, not too much, because if you drag it down too much, it actually ages you. But if you bring it down just in a triangular motion, then it just brings everything together and creates that lift and conceals. For this, I actually like to use my foundation brush, which is typically called a foundation brush, but I like to use it for concealer. And all I do is press into the skin, so it blends it without losing all of the pigment. And I also like to add it to my eyelid. Now another thing you can do if you want to bring everything together with the face, and this kind of touches base on like highlighting and contouring, you can add your concealer to like the chin, the nose, and the forehead. I like to typically just do on my nose because I feel like that's where I lose foundation the fastest. So I like to just put a little bit on my nose and blend it in. And because this concealer is 1 to 2 shades lighter than my actual skin tone, it makes it look like my nose is contoured without actually doing any nose contouring. And that's a trick for the pale girls out there. Typically you want to focus more on the highlighting than the contouring because that's what's going to look the most natural because you are already so fair. If you're doing contouring, if you ever see like a very fair girl doing a lot of contouring, it looks very unnatural. Because we are so fair, we naturally aren't going to have those really deep contours. You see medium to dark skin tones, they can rock a really strong contour because it fits their skin tone and it looks amazing. And not saying that they can't rock a good highlight either, they totally can. But if you think about different skin tones, what looks more natural? If I put a really bright white highlighter on my skin, you're not really going to see it. It's going to be there, but it's not going to stand out very crazily. Whereas if you did that on someone with a medium to dark skin tone, it's really gonna stand out and you're gonna see it like, bam, that girl has a crazy highlighted cheek. So there's also different tones and different shades that you can use for highlighting and contouring and things like that. But think about your skin tone. I typically don't like to contour. I just use bronzer, and that's what's best for me because I like to warm up my skin. But if I do a really harsh contour, it always just looks unnatural because I am so fair. But to each their own. Not saying that there's a certain way you need to do or don't do your makeup, but it's just little tips and tricks that if you feel like your contour never looks right or never looks natural or it just doesn't work for you, it could be your skin tone, and that's okay. Work on highlighting or try something else. Try a different shade for your contour. Try something maybe a little more gray or ashy because that looks more like a shadow instead of like a bronzer. There's a million and one different things you can do, but I always recommend to fair girls trying highlighting and focus more on highlighting than the contouring because it's still going to add dimension and shape to your face without it looking too unnatural. So that's all I do for my under eye, and then I'm going to set that. Okay, now that all of my liquid products are done, I'm going to set my foundation and concealer into place. And for that, I'm going to be using the Makeup Forever HD powder. This one is a translucent powder. It doesn't have any color to it, and it just works. It's very, very finely milled, so it doesn't look very powdery, and it just smooths out all texture and makes my foundation and concealer last throughout the day. And for that, I just like to use a fluffy brush. You could also use a sponge, like a beauty blender, if you want to do the baking technique to make sure it really stays in place. But I always feel like a brush suffices. So I'll just put that under my eye. And for this, I'm doing a tapping motion. I'm not dragging and sweeping because I don't want to disturb all the work I just did. And I especially like to powder my T-zone. This I don't mind sweeping because it's been set for a while. I just try not to be very rough with it, very light. My nose. My chin. And then I just run whatever I have left with my brush over my cheeks. I don't want to add any extra product, but I just want to make sure that it's set so that when I go to use my rest of the skin products like bronzer and blush and all of that, it just blends really nicely. And this, guys, completes my Complexion 101 from my beginner Bible. I hope that you really enjoy this series, and I hope that what I just showed you was really helpful. If you learned at least one thing, then I am really happy and I did something for you, and that's amazing. And if not, I hope you still found this video entertaining or fun to watch or whatever the case. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to check out the rest of the series that I'll be uploading over the next couple of weeks. And I think this is going to be really, really fun, and I can't wait to do the next one. And I think the next one is going to be probably blush and bronzing and highlighting with powdered products. Be sure to look out for that. Thank you guys again for watching. I love you. If you're new here, my name is Brittany. Please subscribe to see more from me. If you're not, thank you for being here, and make sure to like this video and tell me down below what you want to see next from the Beginner Bible, and I will absolutely do that for you. Have a great day, guys. Bye.